Hello, ladies. How are you today and where are you dialing from?
Hello,
Hi.
Kate.
Oh,
Babita, you
Colette,
go.
you can start. Yes.
Uh,
Okay, sure. I'm in New York City, doing really well. It's a beautiful day here. Thanks for having us, Kate.
Thank you. And Babita?
and I'm in Trinidad, as in Trinidad and Tobago, where Colette is originally from as well.
Thank thank you so much for joining my hot seat session. As you can see from the background, you are on a Gleek Live where we help companies and businesses all over the world address their blind spots and gain competitive edge with the help of our wonderful mentors. So my first question goes to Colette. As a food strategist, which sounds actually exciting to me, are there any startups initiative that you believe have a lot of potential to impact the water food nexus and actually help, corporates to disrupt their own sustainability efforts?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, I come from a background of 20 years in corporate, in banking, and then 13 years now running my own corporation, two different ones to be exact. But I can only speak from my own knowledge as to what my experience, right? So, having come from corporate into small business, I noticed that we have an ability to adapt really quickly. And I call it agility, because as a small business, as a startup, we have so much less ladders on the rung to decision makers. So as a result, we're able to be a lot more agile, and it's what we were able to do in the food market once we realized that we needed something different than what we were offering. So as a business, we had been in schools teaching kids how to eat healthily, and we realized that 10% of our kids here in New York City go to school hungry. And if you're hungry, you can't learn. So we pivoted from one line of business in food to agriculture. And now Global Food Warrior teaches kids in schools throughout the United States, New York City to be exact. We're in some parts of the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, and some parts of Africa as well. So, from a corporate standpoint, I think one of the things that they can learn is to actually be as agile as possible to empower their employees to really be able to look for gaps and address those. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's really interesting. I never heard about this. I was in New York 2 times. I never heard about this problem. Thank you for
Oh, so
enlightening me.
yeah, next time I would love to take you to some of our sites and you'll see what it is that we do in the schools.
Thank you so much. And Babita, the same question goes to you. Can you share some wonderful examples of startups that have successfully transformed traditional energy and environmental, practices, leading to more sustainable ones?
I with startups, I think is that they don't have the issues of the bureaucracy that is in like especially large corporates, and they have to worry especially about legal implications and following procedures and policies. Whereas startups have that freedom that people could kind of work across all boundaries and really get problem solving done, and they can usually be much more creative than within corporates. I mean, one that really just stands out in terms of the environmental world, I think for everyone, if they're looking at the global plastic problem, would be that a lot of plastic recently got out of the ocean. And it's like a startup that is not really for profit, but is one of those people planet type startups that just is working on solving a problem that is a problem for the entire world to get plastic out of the ocean. And they were able to just sit down and think about it. And from an engineering point of view as well, for engineers, for all creative type people as well, when they can just get to be able to not have all this bureaucracy of wondering where they're gonna get finance sometimes, or to think about what legal would say, they can just sit down and solve the problem. That is something
Hmm.
that you can do in a startup type environment, and a way to get some of that into the corporate world could be, and I mean, I've had that experience as well, when people sometimes they form like a project team, or they just form a special project where you can have some isolation from the rest of the corporate structure, where people tend to then work outside of their roles. They can adopt different roles and work together as a special team to solve a particular problem. And I've had that experience to do that already in the energy sector to solve problems. And I think that is a successful way to approach it.
This is gradually leads me to my second questions to both of you. You come from different niches, different fields, but I feel like something actually unites you, and it's the understanding of how corporates fail when they try to be sustainable. So my question to both of you, what kind of challenges they most often encounter when corporates trying to be more sustainable? Colette, you can start.
Well, I so admire what Babita shared because it's absolutely true. And when we in corporate, I remember I was in sales for many years, and we had something we call ABC, which is to always be closing. The goal of every sale is to close it, yeah, or else you didn't make your money. So instead, in small business, especially in the startup phase, we have what we call ABG, which is always be growing. And so we are always trying to find the gaps inside the business and outside in the marketplace and addressing those with solutions. Babita mentioned it in her speech about how it's very, very important that you are a part of the solution. Yeah. And I think across business lines, across industries, there are certain things that just work in every business to ensure that it is strong. And it is that one thing which is to consistently be growing your leaders on the inside. Yeah. And empowering them as well. It's kind of why I like Gleek too. It's because even as leaders, as mentors, we're always learning something. Even if it's from our micro practices or the group chats that we're in, the leaders on board are always learning something else. So I think learning is growing, and corporations can do the same by allowing their employees to be creative in the space that they're in and grow every time. Look for those gaps.
Thank you. And Babita, what challenges can you add?
I will agree with Colette that with Gleck. I'm actually like I tend to call it a think tank. It's just a WhatsApp group where we share ideas, but because people engage. I know like some companies would already have this in their creative process, but it's like where from an engineering background, for example, if engineers can like usually socialize or sit in the same space, sometimes just the way they create the spaces so that people could informally come together and meet and discuss ideas, even like as people say during their cooler breaks or their coffee or tea break. But people could really engage in ideas. For myself personally, working in corporate, it could be frustrating if you're not going to like because people are so, as Colette mentioned as well, focus on goals. So like if you focus on the bottom line as profit, and then somebody from like legal will come and say to you, look, you cannot do this, you have to do it this way because we could be in issues. And this is a real problem for corporates because they have to be responsible to their shareholders for making profit, and they do have to be responsible. They can get sued for something, whereas in a startup environment you don't have that. So it's good within a corporate if you can just create a small niche where some of that creativity could be allowed in a freer space. And I think like creating maybe in a employee's time, because people tend to, if they're being supervised as well, have to focus on what their actual job is. But a lot of companies nowadays are sort of allowing like 10% of that time where you can just be a free thinker and maybe socialize with your coworkers in a space where you can come up with ideas. And I really think for us to solve the environmental problems in the world, and to crack sustainability issues, we need more of that happening, like maybe 20% of your time thinking and working together in that sort of way.
Thank you. As you've already started answering my last question about, what kind of practices corporates can implement to be more sustainable, my last question is maybe you can add some more information, because let's imagine that organization, they do acknowledge their problems and they want to solve them. How can they actually implement this startup mindset to become more environmentally friendly and greener? Because sometimes we understand the problem, we're trying to solve this problem, but we're not really succeeding. What else can you recommend to corporates?
I would
What
say
I can
it's really.
sorry.
Okay.
I'm
I thought I
sorry.
was just going to continue.
I think it's important that you are paying attention to your employees, and particularly for everyone on your team to understand your why. If they understand why you're doing what it is that you're doing, and there is a larger idea or a larger vision in play, and they understand why they're working towards that vision. If it's one like Babita spoke about, cleaning up the seas of plastic, and why that's so important. Each person understanding that within their corporate structure, creating a culture of care, is really, really important, I believe. And if we can do that across business lines and also within all of our companies, all of our employees understand why we're doing it and that we care about the end result so much, you'll see a difference at the end of the day.
It is such a great point because I understand, if you value your employees, your team, they're actually the ones who burst with ideas and they can be the
Absolutely.
source of
Yeah.
everything good that is going to happen in your company. Absolutely
Yeah.
true. Babita.
They have been the
Yeah,
lifeblood of both
Uh,
my companies. Absolutely.
yeah, and
yes.
that's
Yeah.
really what is lost in corporate. I mean, and for reasons why, because they have to meet targets, so people tend to let you know to like focus on your work. And historically the workplace has been so much like people having to be in boxes because of that, literal boxes, because they sit in cubicles often as well. And
Mhm.
like something that Blake has worked as well when they were like growing leaders. And before, I've seen some work that Sally has done actually within Trinidad and Tobago, and it is recognized globally that like meditation and sort of spending some time helps with creativity. And maybe the way we structure workplaces as well, like I've always been like, if people can have this room that they can go into, that they can just actually spend time to think, and whether it's meditate or find a way to like tune into music or engage with something that would make them become more within, to look within, to sort of get ideas and be creative, and then they could actually come together and share what they think. For me, as well as an engineer and somebody who's also creative, it's always sort of frustrating if you can't then get to share that. And it's really very stimulating if you can be in a space where people who are that same mindset, you can bounce things off of them and they can come back to you and then be allowed to sit down, and brainstorm and come up with those solutions. And you really don't find that in corporate spaces often. And I mean, something like that you can easily do it in a startup, because in startups you really have freedom to do whatever you want, especially as Colette, who as a founder of my own startup. I always tell people, I used to work in corporate and I did my own startup, and I go back into work from time to time. And really, in a startup is the only place that you can use all your talents and all your skills,
Yep.
especially if
It's
you're a
true.
founder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I love the most. The freedom that it allows. It does. Yeah.
Yes, it actually leads me to the question that I haven't originally planned, but I forgot to ask you. Since both of you own startups, I would like to first ask Colette and then Babita, what is the practice that you value the most in your own startup? Just to know what you do there that actually helps you to succeed. Colette.
Well, Babita alluded to it. We do something we call a huddle every day. So you know how uh, footballers huddle before they start their game? We huddle too. And I learned that it actually in a corporate job that I was in. So we would get together each morning and create our plan for the day. We have a plan for the month, we have a plan for the quarter, and we have a plan for the year. But every day, setting the tone in our huddle was really, really extremely important. That way, everyone knew what their role was and what it is that we needed to accomplish in that day, so that hitting our goals became much, much easier because it was that we were working together cohesively. So I suggest every company find a way to spend some time each day with their employees, because that's again the lifeblood of your company. Setting the tone is extremely important.
Thank you, Babita.
For me, because my startup I think would be like in a different stage as well. It's been in a long good stage, because I've been through COVID and that kind of thing. And for me it's more like I don't have like a lot of permanent employees as yet. But for me it's like constantly brainstorming. Sometimes it could be a bit giddy in, but I think that when you're an entrepreneur and a founder, like I'm constantly thinking about what ifs and what's going to be the implications. And I'm trying out a product in my head, I'm thinking it through and sort of developing. So you're constantly on the job. That's the thing about startups, is like you get people, if you're in a startup you're always working. And so it's
It's
like that,
true.
but when you're still in the growth phase. And so it's just growth, and but so very creative, so it's overwhelmingly creative, because it's just a lot of ideas coming at you, and you're still trying them out, and you quickly, as they say, fail fast, like you kind of taking it through and testing this out to see if this will work, and then if it doesn't work you go to another idea. So
Yeah.
it's very Gideon, but it's very exciting. So
I absolutely relate to this because that's exactly what we do at Gleek as a startup ourselves. I understand the importance of actually talking to your employees, to huddle with them every day, to brainstorm your ideas, and to adapt because you're often thinking of the new ways you can use your product. And you should try to somehow manage all of those ideas and being
Yeah.
able to work 24/7. I absolutely loved your last answers because I feel like the best way to learn for corporates is to actually by example. And both of you have wonderful examples as your startup companies.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
this session with me. That was really quick, but it was really full packed of information for me because somebody who has never worked in corporate, for me all of these tips, they were really great to to put together and to deliver the information to corporate. So I really appreciated you taking your time to deliver all of this information and knowledge. If our audience enjoyed this conversation, I highly encourage you to check Babita and Colette and learn how you can work with them to solve your own sustainability problems. Thank you so much, ladies, and I hope you're going to have the best end of the day.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys. We're
Have
just
a great
starting our
day.
day
Thank
here in
you.
Trinidad, so it's going to be a great day, hopefully.
Yay.
Oh, in New York too,
Yeah,
and for
Yes.
it's
me as
beautiful
well.
here. So I'm thinking about going to the beach.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Then have the best day. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.